Thank you for double-clicking your mouse tonight. You're listening to the Midnight Frightcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Midnight Frightcast. It's a bonus episode, and I'm doing two of my favorite things. We're drinking wine, I'm hanging out with awesome women, and we're ready to fucking go. We got this? Alright.
Alright.
I'm Maddie. We've got over in the corner the guy who likes to watch, and he's watching today.
I see you, man. I totally see you.
Across the table we got Patrick. I'm just getting the boring ones out of the way first.
Well, since you introduced me, I'm going to have to say, hey, everybody, how's it going?
And I'm going to introduce our two very, very special guests. We have Lisa and we got Dorothy, and we're going to rock this out. It is Women in Horror Month. We're a tiny bit late. At least we're not your period. Everyone's signed off right now, but that's fine. So, first off, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. This is probably one of my favorite casts that we do. Although we've only done it twice. That's legit, though. But I'm going to have you guys go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. And we'll just start off from there, Lisa.
All right. My name's Lisa Kovanda, and I'm a screenwriter predominantly, but with the encouragement of the local film community, I've been branching out more into actual filmmaking itself. So sitting across from someone that I absolutely admire who kind of paved the way in Nebraska as far as female directors. So, yay.
Oh, yeah. There's got to be more, though. Like, tell me some more about what your awesomeness.
What is my awesomeness? Gosh, I write books, written a couple true stories, won some awards, and that's always fun. I'm also a representative ambassador for neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorder. That's a big, nasty word, but it's a rare neuroimmune disorder similar to MS. Only MS meds would probably kill me, so it's kind of really important for our doctors to know the difference. So all about getting awareness out there so that our doctors can make the best decisions for us, and using my voice that way as well. And other than that, I just hang out and enjoy life with all the grandkids and all that fun stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
High five, voice and awareness. Just a gentle high five.
Dorothy, you've been on here before, but tell everybody what you do in case people are new.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, my name's Dorothy. I'm a film director and just a director of many visual things. Let's see, why am I on this podcast? Oh, I know. I've directed 3 horror films that we shot here in Nebraska. My first one was Wake the Witch. That ended up on Netflix. Boom.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one of those like early, like peak early, and then what happens? The rest of it's just been a spiral down. I was like, we did Blood Rights, then we've got Corruptor, but you could rent them all on Amazon Prime, literally right now, if you wanted. I'm just saying. Yeah, what else have I done?
Go to
Web
Amazon.
series,
Absolutely.
Blah, la, la. But yes, that's what I do. Direct horror. Thank you.
Amazing. Do you guys have anything like new that you're working on that you want to share, or?
I've got a short script that we are going to be casting this coming weekend. So
Nice.
that'll be part of Tingles Down Your Spine. So
Very fun. I've seen that.
yeah. I'm just excited to have a short in each of the 3 segments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, to me, it was really exciting to get that final script.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was like, it's mine. It's my precious.
And you're like represented in all 3 movies, which is awesome.
I really wanted that. So I was fighting for that last script to get part of that last project because it was iffy there for a while.
Things happen.
You hear that, Matt? You cannot cut my film from the last segment. You cannot.
Matt, I know where you live, so just saying. Just throwing that out there. Dorothy, do you got anything that you're working on new?
Yeah, I got hired to make a 25 minute horror show for a guy out in Los Angeles who's putting together like a compilation or some kind of a thing. I'm not 100% sure. That's like classically me. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. I'll make it. It's supposed to be a monster sort of thing. And so I think I'm going to write a siege film, and I'm going to use like a super weird, not like your typical monster, like a, you know, like a werewolf or anything that's like large and I don't know, has legs. I think it's going to be more weird and kind of messed up.
Okay, I think that's really, really important. Say that first bit again. You just got hired from someone in L.A.
It sounds so fancy, doesn't it?
That's fancy.
I mean, that's huge. That is huge
I'm
for
not
a
trying to downplay
female
it.
horror director from Nebraska. That is like enormous.
Here's the thing that I'm going to tell you guys right now. You can say things like, I got hired by someone in L.A. How sweet is that? But if you dig into it deeper, maybe you'd be like, oh, that's not as impressive as I think. So my point is like, yeah, let's just leave it at that. I feel really good about it. I'm super excited about it. And we'll see like where it ends up. You know what I'm saying?
It's about the marketing. You can spin however you want. You're like,
100%.
yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, what drives you guys to horror? Like, why is that your thing? It might not be your total thing, but today it is, because that's what we're talking about.
You damn right it is today. But Lisa, what is it?
You know, I remember, I can tell you what I was wearing. And I was in grade school, but I went to a slumber party with a bunch of girls, and everybody was kind of giving up and crashing. And I came across this tattered book in a corner, and it happened to be Carrie. And I had never read anything like that in my life. And I sat there that night, everybody else is sleeping, and I'm with the flashlight in my sleeping bag, and I read that book from cover to cover in one night while everybody else was sleeping. And that was my first exposure to horror. And I don't know, there's just something about it, about what happens inside your brain to get from point A to point B. And that's kind of been my, good people do horrible things and think they're right. So I just really was drawn to the genre because it was so different from anything else I'd read. And it made me think in a way that I'd never thought before. And I was hooked. And that was it. It was such, and just for the record, I was wearing a floor-length beige nightgown with lavender lace. I know, I can tell you, my hair was in a ponytail. And it was so vivid to me that I can remember what I wore. And that is to me what, if I can remember in that clarity, that moment when something switched on in my life, and I'm not young, so, 50 years later, to remember it with that level of clarity, it was a really monumental moment in my life to be introduced to the genre.
You hear that, Greg? We always give him crap because he has said that he was scarred because he went over to his friend's house and was exposed to a horror movie. I'm just saying it can be positive. So go to your sleepovers, expose your friends to new things, and
different genre entirely.
Awesome. I feel like a lot of people's introduction to horror is Stephen King, because that was what mine was too. And it wasn't Carrie, I think it was Cujo. I feel like he's the gatekeeper. He's luring people in, hey, it's not scary in here, it's fun, we're having a good time.
Or conversely, maybe it's scary as fuck, you're still gonna love it though.
Yeah,
you're never gonna be able, it's never gonna let you go. Because my experience doesn't start with Stephen King, but I also have a Stephen King experience. The first Stephen King book that I ever read was Salem's Lot, and it scared the shit out of me. It scared me so bad that when I was done, I took the book, I went outside, and I threw it as far into the woods as I could throw it, because I was pretty sure that what was in the book might come out as I slept at night in my bedroom. And I was like, I can't have that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, for me, I would say I grew up in a fairly evangelical Christian household, and so I really believed in evil. That was a thing that that you really just assumed walked the earth and could show up at any time and possess you or, whatever. I didn't get to watch horror movies until I was probably, I don't know, maybe a junior or senior in high school. But my parents really encouraged us to read, so I read a bunch. And I read a lot of things I probably shouldn't have read. Parents, they're always like, oh, I feel like we're making a good decision here. We're going to protect our kids. We'll leave this door open. It's primarily educational and informational. All things can be hacked to the danger side. So I 100% did that. And for me, ultimately, we chose to make a horror film. My first film was horror because of two things. One, there's a hardcore fantasy aspect to horror that I really like. I'm really drawn to that. And it's always, sort of the stepsister to drama. I really like that too. And you can make horror films for not a lot of money and people will still see them. Marketing wise, big thumbs up for that.
Yeah, there you go. What is there any women in horror that inspire you that really you're like, that's my girl?
I'm sitting across from her. I really am.
Oh my Lord.
I'm not kidding. When I started out in the filmmaking, I mean, I was a screenwriter, novelist, and, the sky's the limit when you're writing spec films. You can do whatever you want. And it wasn't until I came onto the cast of, or the crew of Remission that I realized, that people were making movies in Nebraska. And they were not only making movies, they were making movies that people were watching. It wasn't just an effort in doing it to say you're doing it. People are, they're getting on Netflix and I've watched Nailbiter on, how many times on Chiller FX, I mean, Nebraskans are making a difference. And so it gave me a different perspective. And I kind of love the challenges of the low budget thing, not knowing necessarily what your location is and having to write your script to fit whatever's in front of you at the moment. And, blessed enough to have worked with Patrick on Ghost Hunter, I had no idea where we were going to film that thing until the day we showed up. So to see how you could, take something and have a concept and have it come to life was just really, really exciting. But I first had the dream that I could do that sitting at Prairie Lights Film Festival watching your film. I thought, I can do this because I'm watching someone and I see her right in front of me. So yeah, you honest to God, Dorothy, this is exciting for me to be able to work with you today.
I'm crazy flattered by that. And I am also really grateful to have had that opportunity. I've always looked for other women to inspire me as well. And just the thought that might have been something I was able to do too. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
And that's sincere.
I believe you. That's why I feel awkward and embarrassed in a really good way. And so thank you for that. Yeah, this sounds kind of disingenuous maybe, but it's kind of true. Is growing up in the 80s and watching horror films, the women in horror that I was really drawn to were a lot of those early final girls. Because that was kind of prior to the time where you really thought a lot about who was directing that and where can I see them. And so this sounds stupid, but one of my favorite horror movies that still holds true for me is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And Nancy in that movie is my fucking jam. That girl, grasp of reality, totally willing to grasp the fantasy that's happening as well, having a plan. She's a hero, like no doubt, completely. And I rewatch that, I don't know, maybe every couple of years. I've done a couple of times where I'll sit down and like write out all the story beats. You're trying to like infuse whatever it is that you're doing with work that you admire. So yeah, I do want to side note and say, I remember seeing Remission and just being so blown away by it. That is, I think, one of the best films to come out of Nebraska. It's up there with Nailbiters. I mean, and I'm talking to you, Josh, guy who likes to watch. And obviously, you too, everybody that was involved in it. It was really enjoyable to see. Just beautifully cast and really strong writing. So, yeah, man. That's how I like to end that. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
No, that's awesome. And it's great that we have, female filmmakers in Nebraska who are like out there and like screenwriters and everything that was with it. They're out there like kicking ass and taking names. It's like, go do it. Go blow this red state out of the water and get your shit together because we got it. Mm-hmm. In the last 10 years, what female creators do you think have really stood out in the horror world?
Here's the crazy thing for me, and I apologize for this, is I don't have... Talk to me about the ones that have stood out for you. That's what I want to start with. And then maybe I can jump off of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was thinking about Catherine Hardwicke, right, after Twilight, which was such a shit show for her. And what I mean by that is people treated her like shit.
Oh, yeah.
She did fine work on that film. She 100% should have been hired back to do the other ones.
I absolutely agree.
Fuck that. But she's gone on to do horror stuff, and I think that that's kick-ass. Or like, I know Jodie Foster has done some Black Mirror shit. Mirror shit. Here's just as a side note, I'll say one of the things that I feel like I've seen with horror more and more is it's moved away from that, what we certainly now see as just a trope of like teens getting killed in place, whatever that place is. Now it's like super more emotional and like real life where you're just like, oh my God, it's so real. And it's horror. I don't even know in some cases how to respond to that. I thought at some point you've watched enough horror that you're kind of immune to it. Like, you just let the violence wash over you. Now I'm
No.
watching horror movies where I'm just like, I don't know if I can. It's almost too much. And I'm not talking about the blood and gore necessarily. I'm talking about the emotional aspect. So
I think that is something that women in horror in general have brought to the table. It's not about, I'm not really that drawn to slasher horror. It's just not my thing. To me, it's all about that psychological journey. Nobody gets up in the morning and decides that, in my most famous story that's not been adapted to film yet, Hollywood, listen up, nobody's going to get up in the morning and say feeding my boyfriend to a wood chipper while he's still alive is a good idea. But how do you get from the point that is the only option you have left on the table? And that journey to me is where horror really lives. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in the theater watching Black Swan, when it was nominated for all the Academy Awards, and being blown away when the realization hit me halfway through the film. This is fucking horror. This is a horror film, and it's getting Oscars. And Natalie Portman in that role, she killed it. I mean, that was, to me, one of the most impactful things in the decade, was when Black Swan brought horror to Academy level. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise it had been, the redheaded stepchild. And I can say that as a proud redhead. So, but it was kind of the second rate. If you can't make it in the real world, I suppose you can do horror. And instead, we are seeing more enlightened, even Stephen King's newer stuff is really more about that core thing that lives in us. There's an evangelical background, and I can totally relate to that. We had that drilled into us. That was part of it. And so to see that really come more mainstream, more acceptable, and more accessible, I think has been a real shift in the last decade.
I'm personally more of I love my extreme horror. I want shit that you can just barely legally download off the internet. And
I knew that about you.
Yeah.
Yes. That's amazing. Your ability to you have a psychic shield, and I would like some of that.
But that's kind of why I've loved the Soska sisters so much, because they are a little more, they like that gore, they like that blood, they like that brutality. And I'm just like, bring that out and have women represent it, because it's been such a sausage fest. The extreme horror genre is a sausage fest. It's fine. Whatever. They know their audience. They know what's going on, and they make some amazing movies. But I'm like, no, go out there and get it. Make your snuff film, honey. Go do it.
Oh, my God.
That's my thing.
Here's a random thing kind of to jump off of that is, when I think of extreme blood and gut scenarios, I will think of some early Peter Jackson stuff. What is the one that he did with the infectious monkey that bites people and then everyone turns into zombies, and there's a lawnmower. Does anyone remember the what?
Dead Alive.
Yeah, it was
Dead Alive.
Dead Alive.
It's not what I think of as the more realistic brutality and blood and guts, but holy shit, is there liquid all over the screen, just It's great.
Yeah,
That's
fun.
really fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I like lawnmower deaths. They're fun. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of modern horror? We kind of touched on that a little bit, that you like that emotion and kind of more it's not, topless Susie running around getting stabbed by some big meathead. It's more emotional. It's more psychological.
It's more intimate.
Yeah,
that's the thing that weirds me out. So I finally saw Midsummer, and at first I walked away from it well, that's no big deal. And then had the most nightmare laden night of my life, to the point where I woke up at 5 and was like, I have to get the fuck out of this house and go sleep somewhere else, because I feel like something is coming and I don't want to be here when it gets here. That's part of my upbringing. So, but here's the thing that I thought was the craziest is when, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, you should probably stop listening now. When it starts, you see this girl, this woman who's living at home with her elderly parents, and she has killed them. And she has killed herself in a super gross way. She's left the car running in the garage. She's run this nasty hose pipe that's been duct taped that breaks off, where she's put it over her parents' faces so they're breathing the exhaust fumes. And then she has done the same, and she's wearing this reverse oxygen mask in this room, and they're all dead. And there was something so gross and real and honest in the idea of I'm taking care of my elderly parents at home. I don't know what I'm going to do. I wish I was dead. Maybe I wish they were dead too. That is so different from, we just came to camp to hang out and have sex, and then I don't know what's happening. We're all dying.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, holy shit. That's almost too real. Don't bring that horror too close to home. Damn.
Yeah, it's scenarios you can picture yourself in instead of just like, because I rarely find myself topless in the woods. I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Right.
But I'm just saying that it's not a common thing. But most of us have parents, and we all face that. And hopefully that's not the path we all choose. But, you know, you think about stuff like that. And that's a really good point, because I have personally not loved modern horror just because I like a little fun. I like a little gore.
Right.
But I think that is a good point. You're seeing scenarios more that you could realistically end up in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not the kind of thing where you can be yelling at the screen like, don't split up. Go in the other direction.
Don't go down that hole.
Don't take care of your elderly parents. Get a caretaker. You need some respite time. You know, no one's going to be yelling that.
Yeah. What about you? You kind of touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like Dorothy, when I can picture myself in the shoes of the person that is on the screen, man, that shit comes home with you, and it impacts you. You know, when you're still dreaming about it a week later, or, you know, remembering it in vivid detail years later, that's the type of thing that I want to create. I want you to walk out of the movie theater and I want you to feel something. And if you don't, then I screwed up. I haven't done my job, you know. And my job is to make you feel something. You may hate me. You may hate everything I stand for, but you fucking feel something when you're done reading one of my books, or when you're done watching one of my movies. You damn well better feel something.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, then I need to start over. I need to trash it and do something different, because that is my whole goal, is I want you to feel something.
No, I think I think the best filmmakers and screenwriters, they make you feel something. Might be irritation, it might be fear, might be
Despair.
Yeah, it might be despair, and that can be two sides of the coin.
True. I'm with you. I feel like some fun, that sounds kind of weird, in horror is definitely like more what I am interested in. But I will say this is also a thing. Like, I watched the new Halloween and was like, boring. I'm sorry, but it was. It doesn't make me feel anything, and it also does not make me, you know, I'm certainly not scared, and I'm not even intrigued much. I have no despair either. It's like there's a weird aspect of some of that trope where the juice has all been squoze out of it.
Yeah.
We got to move on and find some other, you know, something other juicy to pick.
What's probably been the movie that scared you guys like the most? Like your ultimate nightmare movie?
Oh my God. Go ahead.
Because of the setting, and I have to tell this story, I grew up in Nebraska City, and there was a drive-in movie theater, and it was right across the street from a cemetery. So I saw
Classic.
the original Night of the Living Dead sitting on a gravestone across from the theater, and you could hear it and see the screen perfectly. So the police didn't like us, and, you know, they would kind of routinely make a little lap through there, but, you know, we did our thing anyway. So, yeah, I watched the first night, you know, the Night of the Living Dead, the first real zombie movie, I think. And I saw it sitting on a gravestone, which is fucking scary as hell. And, of course, the dude, you know, Sandy, I love you, but your husband was a jerk. You know, he kept coming up and scaring the crap out of us and stuff. And we were just convinced that, you know, something was going to come out of the dark and get us. And that was a rough week. I mean, I don't think I sleep. And another one I saw from the same vantage point involved a female protagonist. Could not tell you what the name of the film is. But what scared me the most about it was that the female character could have physically been me at age 30. And it was a mirror that broke, and anybody that the light of the mirror shone on was going to have, like, they were going to meet a bad demise, and you knew it. So it kind of had a slasher element, but it wasn't like a Michael with a mask or a chainsaw, you know. It was random shit, like a knife would just pick up off of a counter and just come flying across the room. So it wasn't something you could tangibly touch or kill. How do you combat that if it's just coming out of nowhere? So that film was really impactful for me. But those two are kind of tied as far as old school, you know, things that just really blew me out of the water and impacted me was that total unexpectedness of getting, you know, and sometimes I think that's lacking in some of the stuff today. But I love that the drama and horror genres are merging more, you know, where it's more psychological horror than just, you know, like I said, I absolutely agree. The slasher stuff, unless you've really got a unique, brand new take on the film, it's been done. And we are going to know that as an audience, that your goal is to just kill everybody. And what's the fun in that if you're only part of sitting through a movie is what one person's going to maybe walk out alive at the end? It just doesn't appeal to me then.
You know, if you want to relive like your first experience, there's a haunted house in Elkhorn, Nebraska, and it's called Camp Fear, I think. And they have a big like drive-in movie screen, and you camp out there, and they have the actors like come and like freak you out during the movie and during the night. I've always wanted to do it because I think it's like just like the theaters in Texas that show Jaws, like everyone's sitting in a swimming pool. Like if you put yourself in that situation, like fear goes through the roof. Yeah. I also think you might stab one of the actors, but you know, if someone's like jumping out at your tent at night after you've watched like even like something like Friday the 13th, you're probably going to pee. Like
there's going to be a reaction of some sort.
Yeah, you're probably going to have a problem. What's your like scary movie then?
One of the things that I think is really interesting about Lisa, your answer is that, you know, the things you can't stop. Like how do you prepare for them? Because I think a lot of times you watch enough horror movies and you start going, oh, okay, like I get it. How are you not the victim? How can you survive? You know, there's certainly been studies or let's say sociological papers that have been written that talk about why we have such an addiction or an interest in horror films as, you know, are they sort of like survival? Or is it like a safe like danger room training space for us to feel fear without actually being afraid that we're going to die? Because I feel very similar. The two films that have had the biggest impact on me are films where you cannot protect yourself from the thing that's coming. And one of those is Jaws. And I probably didn't see Jaws until like high school or maybe even early college. Like, you know, I probably saw it on VHS. It scared me so bad that I literally still, when I am by myself in water, just swimming pool water, where there's no chance that there could be anything coming to get me, I will still every now and then be like, like it's going to come through the drain. It's real.
Yeah.
But the other film that scared the crap out of me was the American version of The Grudge. I don't know if you guys...
Oh, I saw that.
You saw that, right? I remember after seeing that, I went into it because I'd seen The Ring, and I had gone to see it with friends, and I was like, we're going to make fun of this the whole way through, which we kind of did, but it trickled off towards the end where we were all like, oh, Jesus Christ, it is kind of scary. After that, I was like, we're going to go see The Grudge. We're going to do the same thing. That's how I'm going to approach this horror thing, because I'm terrified. Like, I'm scared of the dark. We went and saw The Grudge, and literally for the next month, as soon as the sun started to set, I could feel my entire like nervous system opening up and going, did you guys hear that? Was there... Wait. Seriously, did you hear that? Literal fear for a month after that. It's just a movie. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was in it. I should have been like,
I know.
It's fine. No, that little... Fuck.
I was that way after that movie where the mirror was involved. I was in high school and I couldn't look in a mirror. I mean, I couldn't go to sleep unless I got up and covered the damn mirror.
Cover the mirror up.
Yeah.
That is that fairy tale shit. Something could come through. You don't know.
Yep.
You don't know how that shit is.
Anything is possible.
I know. I watch a lot of like true crime stuff, and I watch a lot of like alien stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I know, like 90% of the time I come on here and I was like, I was watching some like weird cult documentary again, or so I watch those like weird alien documentaries with people that you're like, who let you out of the house? And like, it's still, even though I think those people are a little touched, it freaks me out because I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. There's been no proof one way or another. It still bothers me. And you're right, because you're just like, you don't know. I don't know if I'm covering mirrors or, you know, looking at the night sky. Like that whole drone thing over Lincoln, like,
oh yeah,
freaked me out for no reason, because I was just like, God, what if it is? I'm not ready to be probed. Like, I'm not there yet.
They'd probably give you a minute to get ready. But
Get that
maybe
Vaseline
a
out.
little sedative, maybe.
It's
Yeah.
embarrassing to realize for me sometimes how tenuous my hold on reality really is. You know, like I think a lot of times we walk around, you're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not going to give in to some crazy fantasies. I'm totally fine. I know what's up. But if you put me in a dark room by myself and created a scenario, there is a 77.3% chance that I would immediately be like, this is real. And I will 100% accept the reality of this. Now what the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah, no, I like to think I don't let stuff get to me, but I do. Like, I walk my dog in a lot of, like, more remote places. If you see me, I look like a fucking owl because I'm just like, especially after I've been watching some stupid serial killer thing.
Because you're like, I know what can happen.
Yeah, I know it
monsters
can
are
happen.
out there.
Yeah, and like they're real life people. It's not like I'm not afraid of someone like turning into a werewolf. I'm afraid of them being like Stabby McGee over there, or
Yeah.
yeah, it's bringing that real life horror into horror movies. That's what fucks me up. Keep your Jasons, keep your Michaels. It's people like
Yeah.
the Fireflies that weird me out because I'm like, I've met you.
Oh my God.
I've met you people.
Yeah, I always think, and I don't know this for a fact, that's kind of where like a lot of 70s horror got its kickoff. You know, it's like they were truly experiencing like serial killer scenarios in those late 60s, early 70s that were making the news. Like, what's the one that Patton Oswalt's first wife wrote that book about I don't know if it's called The Night Stalker. That's probably something else. Anyway, an actual guy who's planning these incredibly elaborate rapes that ultimately turned into rapes and murders. Maybe like 100 people. I don't really have like a number in my head. That was a real life thing. People were terrified and they could not stop him. Just ponder that for a second. You're in a city the size of Lincoln. There is someone roaming the streets at night that is raping people that you know in houses right next to you. Sometimes he's killing them. The cops don't know who he is. No one can stop him. You don't know anything. That's a real life monster. Mm-hmm. So you see like all those serial killer movies, all that Jason, you know what I mean? It feels like it's taken to such a huge degree. I'm sure in the 70s people were like, that's real.
Oh yeah.
Jason's probably a real thing.
Yeah.
And now we're just like, that would never happen.
We have that in our state. I grew up hearing and knowing about the night or the Starkweather rampage.
Right.
We kind of had that. And when it happened, I was an RN and actually took care of people from the Rouleau cult, you know, and before, during, and after. It was a friend of mine who her boyfriend was digging take it off a quarter of an inch at a time, looking for that little 5-year-old boy. This was real shit.
Yeah.
And it was happening in my backyard by people that I had met and taken care of in the hospital. I mean, did it impact me and what I think and how I act as a screenwriter and, you know, novelist and filmmaker? Hell yes.
Yeah.
Because it's real shit that happened and it's impact. I mean, with real people that I knew. It's changed a lot in how I approach horror. Definitely, the Boys Don't Cry, that all happened in my backyard too, and I took care of and knew these people. I was a student at Pre-State College, so these were contemporaries of mine that were fucking dead, just gone. You know.
Yeah, it's so weird how you can just be like connected to something and not really realize it. That whole like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's not a joke.
No,
Like,
that is very real.
Yeah, it totally is. But
And I still say that those type of events, I mean, the Starkweather, the Rouleau cult murders, the whole Tina Brandon transgender murders, those things definitely primed my brain to get into the head of somebody that's making those decisions.
yeah,
Thank God some of them are on death row. They belong there.
Yeah.
But the Michael Ryans of the world and you know, they're out there. And like you said, the serial killers. Is it my next door neighbor? Is it Ted Bundy living next to me? We don't know. How do you stop it?
So we write about the things that frighten us. Not everyone does that, but that's certainly the direction that I went when I think about horror.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I think about the fantasy, and I also think about how terrified I am, probably just, not in general, like walking around like in fear for my life, but, you know, give me a hot second, and if it's dark or if I feel threatened, oh yeah, my reality changes 100%.
Do you think we're different in that respect because we're women? Because I do. I think that there's a fear level that I can go to that Patrick couldn't.
I think that's valid because, like, I've had this conversation with my boyfriend a million times because I am so, like, when I go out in public, I am so in tune to people acting nuts. Like, if someone over here, we're in Walmart and someone over here is just being weird, I focus on that person. My boyfriend has no idea. He has no idea because he's, like, never felt that, like, I'm out at, like, 2 a.m. walking home from the bar and I hear someone behind me. Because my boyfriend's like 6 feet tall.
Right. He doesn't.
He has no idea.
Kick some ass.
Yeah. Like, I am like 5'3". I am very portable. So it's just kind of
You're
like,
just constantly clocking threats.
Yeah.
I 100% get that. You know, Margaret Atwood said, men's greatest fear is that women will laugh at them. And women's greatest fear is that men will kill them. And those two fears probably have the same weight. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Both of them. But Jesus Christ. I don't know if I would say the reason that I'm drawn to horror is because I'm a woman necessarily. Darkness attracts me and I'm terrified of it.
yeah.
But, you know, the women aspect of constantly understanding what it's like to be
Threat assessing.
afraid.
Always.
Yeah, and assessing those threats. Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I'm sure, weighs into it.
Yeah. I can think of like the scariest point in my life in a second. I was a park ranger. And one of the things I did was I, checked out the bathrooms and cleaned them. You have to go into the guys' bathroom. So I was in the park and I was kind of doing something. I noticed this guy go into the bathroom. Didn't really see him come out, but didn't really think about it. I'm not sitting there watching the men's bathroom. But I went in, banged on the door and was like, hey, park maintenance. Didn't hear anything. Go in, and I walked in and I could tell there was someone still in that bathroom. They were trying really hard, like, to do that, like, quiet breathe thing that I'm like, it doesn't work in here. But I was freaked out beyond all rhyme and reason. I just remember standing there and thinking, if I take, like, 3 more steps, I'm going to get, like, raped. And that, like, scared me so bad. Like, I just remember going out and sitting in my truck crying because I was so freaked out. I was thinking, like, holy crap. Do guys have to deal with this? They don't ever like walk into the women's bathroom and maybe hear someone in there and think, oh, I'm going to get killed today. This could be my last day.
I will be harmed. Something is going
Right.
to harm me.
Yeah, like
In like a very, very personal way.
yeah, like who thinks of that?
I feel like maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably some guy out there that does, but what else?
Yeah. Kind of going off of that, do you think movies that are based like solely on real life events, like they all draw inspiration from stuff, but like let's say they made a movie about like the serial killer Israel Keys. Do you guys think that's like respectful to the victims or not? Like making something that drawing entertainment off of something that was so horrible and so real for so many people. I kind of walked that line. I don't know what your guys' like thoughts on that are.
I think the danger with that stuff is that, and this is super fucked up, but I'll just say it, there's a titillation factor. You know, that male-female energy when it comes together, and if you wanted to take it to some super primal bullshit place, you'd be like predator-prey. And there's a lot of stuff that is based around that. And there's aspects of it that are sexy, and there's aspects of it that are darker. And then there's aspects of it that are not right at all. And I feel like that's just a constant, you know what I mean, of our society kind of shades of gray danger that we run into. I don't think it's right. That's me. But I'm not, you know what I mean, protesting it. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's kind of me too. I have a hard time based on life experiences. I remember having to write a report for sociology on the burning bed, and it was too close to home. So my report was all about my physical reaction and my emotional reaction, like physically having to get up and pacing the room. And it was on live TV. It was not like it's going to be showing tonight and you have to watch this and you have to write the report and you have to have it in on Monday. So, you know, I was like, and this was before VCRs even. So, you know, it wasn't like I had any choice but to force myself to watch that show. But it was so freaking close to what I was, you know, what I had experienced that my paper was all about, you know, how I had to, at this point in the movie, physically get up and leave the room and went and threw up. That significant of a response to. And yeah, did I feel something? Oh, yeah. Was it the worst experience in my life at that point? To have to being forced to endure that movie was almost a horror in and of itself. And that's what I wrote the whole paper about, because I could not have told you one plot point from the movie. It was Farrah Fawcett and Tommy Lee Jones, I think. Wow. I might be wrong on that, but I mean, I know it was Farrah Fawcett, and I remember her like hiding in her mother-in-law's underneath the sink. And her mother-in-law did nothing to stop him from dragging her out of there and beating her, you know. And again, it's that whole mental thing. If she got pushed to the point where her only option was to kill him by burning him in his bed, you know, I mean, and it was really a traumatic thing for me, but it was based on a true story, and somebody lived through that, and somebody was brave enough to bring that role in an, you know, it was Farrah Fawcett's heyday, so it was her being really unglamorous and bringing life to that person. And I was not seeing Farrah Fawcett in the red swimsuit when I watched that movie. I was watching a woman being systematically abused and victimized. And it resonated with me in a way that, unfortunately, I still feel sometimes in films, that the things that make us female are being used as weapons against us.
Yeah.
That idea of, if it bleeds, it leads, you know, that's another, powerful thing. How do you make those decisions when you are watching things that are based very specifically on real life?
I have no problem with movies that are based off true events loosely, but like just in the last couple of years, they made that Ted Bundy movie. Yep. I kind of thought that was a little tacky, especially like I know he was supposed to be like, that was so many people's downfall, is that he was your regular attractive white male, but I don't know, I just didn't like that they were portraying him as like this sex symbol, and then there were so many like thirsty people on like social media and stuff like talking about it, and I was like, this is kind of gross, guys. Like I couldn't imagine if like my sister was killed, and they were like they were like, oh, he was killed by this hot man, I would probably cry
in like a horrible way.
Yeah,
not just like, and I shot her with a gun, like a super horrible, personal, up in your face way.
Yeah,
it's different.
It's totally different. So I don't know. I think there is such a fine line that you have to walk between being respectful and like bringing things to light, because I think a lot of those movies like bring some element of like, hey, personal safety is super important, and I think that's something that should be pushed, but at the same time, as you said, like I couldn't imagine if I was affected by that and seeing something like that. And then, as I said, got on Twitter and everyone was like, damn, Ted Bundy, you can put me in your Beetle anytime.
Yeah, you say that now, but
that's gross.
That's the real horror right there. Yo, take note.
It is.
So yeah.
Do you think women are well represented in horror, either on or off screen?
Well, we sure do. Women sure do get killed a lot in horror. Is that being well represented?
I don't know.
I would say more and more now, there's a lot more agency, I feel like, in women who are in horror films. Those characters have a lot more agency than they used to. But in terms of the creative behind the scenes...
Name one, other than Charlize Theron playing...
What's her name?
I cannot. I cannot pronounce her last name ever.
Eileen Wuornos.
And going there, I mean, but how many female serial killers have you heard of?
Well, let's say serial killers aside, just women represented in horror films in general.
Other than victims, I really have made it kind of my mission, and particularly, I don't want to give away endings, but one of my shorts, I've really tried to make it more about female empowerment. And instead of, really trying to take it someplace where instead of being just the standard victim, what you expect, part of my emphasis is, going to be, no, she's going to defeat or going to change it up and not be the victim, where you're the whole time thinking, oh, how's she going to die? And then, no, that's not where I'm going at all. And I think maybe that's something as a woman I bring that's totally different to the scene than maybe if Patrick or Josh had written it.
Well, I think the final girl, as that really came to be a trope that everyone started understanding. Do you remember when people started using the phrase final girl? Mm-hmm. What was that like? Do you remember?
I think that was more of like an 80s thing, and I'm a 90s baby, so like I don't remember.
I could tell you in the 80s no one knew what the phrase final girl meant.
Okay.
But in the 90s,
in the 90s, because it had been around long enough. We'd seen enough of them that we got that.
People started putting that together. It was like a thing that they talked about. Yeah. And so now, of course, a final girl feels a lot different. What's that? The Rise of Leslie Vernon. You guys ever see that?
Yeah.
I love that movie so much. It's like a beautiful, kind of twist on all of those tropes. and the final girl in that, it has so much, I don't know if you'd really call it agency, but there's a lot of awareness about what she is and what she's doing. So
Do you think if they started making more female killers, would that kind of shift that weight a little bit?
I would love to see someone do something where it was a believable female killer.
That's the key. It's got to
Right?
be believable.
Yeah. I just think right now, I don't even, how would you, the films that you've watched, are there female killers in those? I feel like you've seen like a deeper, darker scenario.
American Mary, yeah. That's the only one I can kind of think of off the top of my head. The only other one I could think of was maybe Martyrs, but there wasn't a killer in that. There were just evil women kind of running around, but they weren't killers. They were just kind of like part of...
It's like Suspiria, right? You know,
Yeah.
like those women are evil and they're kind of killers, but they're just killing other women, so...
Yeah, as you said, it has to be believable. Like, you can't have like a female Jason. I don't really...
I
think
just
that-
don't even see... And see, that's the key, is because they roll off of that masculine versus feminine energy.
Right.
How do you flip a script like that where it doesn't just feel like bullshit?
That's the key.
Yeah.
Is to make it seem realistic to an audience.
And sometimes-
you don't know that until you sit in the audience as, you know, and that's one thing, kind of just being the screenwriter. You're more visible as the director. But I love just sitting in the audience and watching the audience react and hoping that they're gasping at the right places, laughing at the right places, and then talking to them afterwards and seeing what they took away from it. And until that happens, you really don't know if you've got it or not.
I would say to some degree that that's why we're seeing a focus on more intimate, like interrelationships that are horrifying. Because there, just like with Midsommar, clearly that woman killed both of her parents.
Yeah.
And it was a kickoff to the rest of the horror. I mean, that's like just a tiny piece of what ultimately happens there. I don't think we could just flip that Jason to versus the killer script. What were you going to say?
I was going to say the movie Audition, I think, would be the only like movie that kind of has like... But that, I don't think that's a slasher. That's more extreme. But you have that relationship there, and I think that's the only way you could have like a typical average female that people would relate. Please don't relate to people like that, but that people that are almost kind of believable.
Yeah.
That you could, like, a woman could overpower like a guy as if he was drugged, or something like that. Because, as I said, I'm 5'3". I don't think I could run down the street and stab people. Maybe
once.
Get their ankles.
Get away with it.
Get their
Surprise attack.
Right.
Because horror is moving more to like that like emotional place. What do you think that holds for like women in horror?
Well, I think like Lisa said earlier, it becomes more dramatic. And I would say this is just a broad stroke about women. It's not true, obviously, just as a stereotype. We think about the interrelationships between people a lot. That's part of our survival technique. That's how we understand what's happening both socially and physically in a space where we are. So we are, incredibly well trained, I think, already to start writing about the horrors that can happen in inner relationships. I mean, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. I think that the kind of blurring of the line between horror and drama has opened up certainly meatier roles for actresses. I think that potentially more empowering roles too. Instead of just knowing you're going to go on a horror set and play a victim, or assuming when you show up that you're going to be a victim, that you suddenly become in a powerful position, or that you're more directing your own, you're more an agent in your own destiny. And I think that we are seeing that represented on the screen, and that's shaping us as a population. So I really think that, horror can actually, believe it or not, empower women to, instead of accepting that, we're going to be cast as the victims in life and going to constantly have to look over our shoulders at 5'3", not weighing a whole lot, that we're more agents in our own future and controlling our own destiny. And I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, you have some like pockets that have like, I think more, because there's a line for me between like empowered female characters and just like batshit nuts ones. Like I was just thinking of the movie The Loved Ones. Yeah, like that woman, the younger girl in there, Have you guys seen that?
I haven't seen it.
No, I've seen
Great,
something else.
great Australian horror. Little twisted, but it's horror.
It's Australian.
But, yeah,
Yes.
it's Australia, and they're breathing some fumes down there, whatever they're doing. But the character is nuts. She isn't. I'm like, but she knows what she wants. So you're kind of like, do I cheer for you, or like, what do I do? And I feel like that's kind of a lot of women who are in like more dramatic roles are kind of portrayed as a little crazy. And I'm like, I mean, I don't care if I'm like labeled as a little crazy, but like that's not how I want representation up on the screen as someone who's nuts. Although, I don't know, like you have like Patrick Bateman. He's a strong character, but he's nuts. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like you give and take a little bit. You're like,
Well, and I think
guess.
some of that, though, is exploring that line. There's clearly identifiable as nuts, and then there's what we define as sane, but there's that gray zone of where do you fit in this? And we all live in the gray zone.
We
I'm
do.
sorry, we really do.
True.
Everybody who thinks you're clear over the green, you're deluded. You have that darkness in you, and you can either embrace it and decide how it's going to dictate your life, or you can let it control you. So, that's something every one of us faces every day. You get mad at your spouse, you don't just knock him in the head. That seems like a normal statement, but society tells us that it's dead wrong.
Yeah.
So, and that can go for female attacking males as much as the other way. So, but every one of us has to make that decision every day. When your kid screws up, are you going to beat the shit out of him, or are you going to guide him in a different way? And that darkness lives in us. So, I think that's why horror has an appeal to us, because we all face that every single day. Have I made this decision for the right reasons? Do I need to go make amends to somebody because, oops, I blew it, and that's all living in the gray zone.
Oh, I get it. I mean, I don't know if I'm just like labeling myself here, but there have been times where I've been out and thought, like, God, I would just really like to punch you in the throat. But I don't.
I write a
Because I don't
script or a
wanna
book.
Yep, you just go and channel it somewhere else.
I'll admit there have been times where I've been out and I'm just like, come at me, because if you come at me right now, I'm fucking ready. I will not hold back, and I will not be scared. That's, I would say, maybe 2% of a time I might be out and about. Most of the time I'm like, dude, just fucking leave me alone.
Yeah. Like
But
my personal hero is that woman who she was taking like self-defense classes, and some guy tried to attack her in the bathroom when she was jogging out in the park. And she beat the shit out of him and was screaming, "Not today, motherfucker!" And I'm just like, yes,
You're my hero.
Preach, girl.
Here's the thing I think, though, is kind of fascinating. If you're going to make a horror film, people got to get killed, and there has to be some fear attached to that. Where does that leave opportunities for women? If we have Final Girls become much stronger, the newer Halloween, it just becomes kind of like a weird action movie, which I'm not that much about. I mean, if I want to see an action movie starring women, I want to go somewhere. I'll watch a Marvel movie. I want to see the new Black Widow, whatever.
Yeah, I want to see Black Widow. Yeah.
But if people are going to get killed, can we flip the script in the more and more horrifying, terrible ways? Because horror is not meant to be. It's always supposed to leave you maybe with certainly if not just straight up fear. And like, oh, fuck, I don't know if I could survive that. Maybe also some nausea, like, oh, why did I see that?
Yeah, my favorite horror movies, I feel like I have to shower after, and that's what I
Yeah.
want.
I can see that. My favorite horror movies are probably the ones where I've walked away going, oh, Jesus Christ, like, that's affecting me. It stayed with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know, I want the ones that I'm going to remember a year from now. I may not be able to recall the name of the film. I may not be able to recall anybody who was in it. But there's some scene or there's something about it that's going to stick with me.
Yeah.
And change maybe who I am inside as a result.
Because to some degree as creators, it's our job to be responsible for the requirements of the genre, right? You're always kind of pushing to make, your own personal artistic statement and vision. But if you're not going to make if you're going to make something and just call it a horror film, I don't know if that doesn't seem really cool, man.
No, I agree.
Whatever.
As like the stewards of the genre,
Yeah.
for young women who are entering that horror space, do you have any advice for them? Or like, what would you say to someone who is like, I want to be a horror creator, and no matter what that is, an actress, a director, a screenwriter, what advice would you give them?
Well, gosh, we have been ingrained from birth about these acceptable roles in society. And so if you're going to get into horror, you need to be willing to challenge those acceptable roles in society and do it in a meaningful way. Like I said, I'm not into horror that's just out to titillate. I'm not into the slasher, which trying to figure out early in the movie which one is going to be the last girl standing. I want something that's going to stick with someone. So as an actress, whether and if you're a screenwriter, filmmaker, director, whatever, again, you have to be true to the genre and respect the history. And, if I'm going to a horror, I know there are certain expectations that I have. You better scare me at least once or I'm going to walk out of there and trash you. I'm sorry, If there's no fear involved, then you did not hit the mark as far as having a horror film. But I want it to be relatable, too. So I would say be real. Look inside yourself. It's there. We have been taught by society it's inappropriate. We can't express it. You have to shove it down. You have to repress it. You have to be the perfect female at all times. And that's just not realistic. So embracing the part of us that men have had the freedom to go there for years, and through cinematic history, we can do that too. But you have to be willing to take the risk to go there. So how far out are you willing to go? How far are you willing to push it? And that's something that every person has to answer for themselves.
Dorothy.
I would say if a woman came to me and said, I want to be a horror creator, I would have to assume out the gate that she already is a huge horror fan. So other than, saying be true to the genre and certainly write what you know, but through the lens of a horror genre, I think the whole, much like what Lisa said, the whole next step is finding people that will support you and will give you space to speak and to make decisions. And if you can't find them, then fucking figure out how to start doing it on your own. Because whoever you are, male or female, you deserve to give yourself the opportunity to create. Not everybody gets a team. And I'm not saying it's a bad or good thing. I'm just saying sometimes it just doesn't happen for you. Don't ever let that be the reason that you don't do a thing you wanted to do.
You can shoot a 4K film today on your iPhone.
It's
more accessible than it's ever been for people to become filmmakers.
Across that board. Do the thing.
Yeah, do the thing.
Just do it.
Do the damn thing.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. We've kind of been ignoring our chat over there. Do we have any questions or anything, Patrick? We'll let you guys talk for a second, I guess.
La, la, la.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you would turn off.
Not so much a lot of input. We got people, signing in and out saying that, they're going to come back to it because they're really liking the discussion so far. So they're going to come back to the video. Matt Keister joined on for a little bit, and he and I actually wrote down things at the same time. Dorothy, you had referred to the term final girl was actually coined by Carol Clover in 1992 in her book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws.
Nice.
So if you have an opportunity to read that book, it's really, really engaging when it comes to looking at the roles of women and men in the horror genre. And this was written back in 1992, 93 was when it was published. Carol Clover has done a really, really good job of identifying the patriarchy. The book you referred to with Patton Oswalt's wife.
Oh, yeah.
Michelle McNamara.
Yes.
The book was called I'll Be Gone in the Dark. So if you want to go back and...
I read that. P.S. It's fucking amazing.
And read that. But otherwise, Matt has made, if you want to go back and look at the video chat along here, Matt has made several comments about...
We love you, Matt.
Yeah, about some references to books or things you can read supporting what you've been talking about on the podcast so far.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. We love you.
We appreciate that. Before you turn that off, Patrick, Josh, do you guys have any questions or anything you want to jump on with?
Josh seems to be enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, okay.
Over there. For me, and I know we skipped over a few of these questions, but there's one that I kind of want to ask, and we touched on it just ever so briefly. Has the Me Too movement impacted the horror genre?
That's too early to tell.
Yeah.
I think it's too early to tell if the
too.
Me Too movement has truly impacted anything. Has it opened, raised some awareness? Yeah, but will that awareness stay? I don't know. This isn't horror related, but certainly like when it came to Captain Marvel and what else did I see recently? Anyway, the idea of, hey, if it's a movie about a woman, well, let's have a lady director. Oh, could we also have like a female screenwriter? Because there had certainly been a time, maybe like 7 years ago, where they were like, we don't need that. I can write for women. And now it's like, well, maybe we should let women have their voice here, which that is a very kind thing. And I appreciate that because that's like weird for dudes to let go of some of that power, man. It's hard. I don't know if I'd want to give that power up. So props.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I could write for a male. So it's just kind of like, why?
Go ahead.
I mean, I probably could.
You totally could.
You totally could.
I don't mean that in an offensive way. If guys can write for girls, girls can definitely write for guys.
Yeah.
We're not that deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a level of reality testing. I mean, I have a trusted group of people that read anything I write before it ever hits, going to anybody else. And I trust them to tell me if my voice is wrong and to make those characters real or to give me that male insight that I just simply cannot have because I'm never going to, in the same way that I am never going to understand what it's like to be a black person, I am never going to understand what it's like to be a man.
Yeah.
I have beautiful grandchildren of color, and, I will never understand their experience. I could be their grandma, but I can't.
Here's the thing I think that's fascinating about that is you look at the Wachowski sisters. They used to be brothers. Now they're sisters. The thing I find the most fascinating about that is they're both filmmakers at a really high level. They started as guys. Now they're girls. I've wondered if, A, that has impacted, now that they are gender changed, the opportunities that they're getting, or the way people perceive them, or if those lucky motherfuckers, having started as guys, get to come in and still reap all the benefits of being seen as dudes, as now as women. And I'll be honest, this sounds terrible, but I sure don't mean it to be. I'm jealous of that. If I could create an alter ego that was a guy that I could put forward in social scenarios and then gather what sometimes does feel like a bias or a perspective that goes, no, it seems more acceptable to me. I want to deal with that. And then later go, surprise, but I'm also a girl. And them just being like, oh, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
That would be great. So when you say it's hard for you to imagine what it's like to be a guy, I don't believe that that's true. You could literally gender change tomorrow if you wanted to, and you'd be a dude. Reverse is also true. We feel like it's so different. Is it? I don't know.
And is it like what people are feeling are different or what they're being perceived as is different?
Being raised as a guy and then becoming a woman, does that make you a different kind of woman? And is the reverse also true?
Yeah, it's got to be.
So is there like a whole new set of guys that are coming up that were women earlier and now they're not? And so, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We just go, oh, those gender differences, like I'll never be able to imagine what your brain is really like, how that perception is. I don't know.
And then how much of it is political correctness just gone freaking insane?
Yeah.
We've carried political correctness to the point that people are afraid to express themselves. And that's probably one of the reasons that people are drawn to horror, because in the horror genre, it's part of your job to destroy all of those preconceived, to tackle those exact issues.
There's a violence to that. I agree. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I feel horror is like the one genre that doesn't really have rules. You can do whatever you want, and everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Was there blood? Yes, there was.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with this.
Did I kill somebody? Oh, I killed everybody. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Real.
Well, is there anything else you guys want to add, or?
I was going to say, I actually do want to ask one more question. And what do you think the future holds for women in horror?
Do you mean like female characters in the horror genre, or do you mean women making horror, or both?
Yes.
Thank you.
That would be both.
I want some female studio execs. I want to see what that changes in the film landscape and the TV landscape. I think the avenues for us as far as creating horror in Nebraska and getting distribution in a meaningful way beyond just the film festival scene that we see is exploding. There are opportunities today that did not exist 5 years ago with Hulu and Amazon creating. All these people are creating original content. Picard is only on CBS All Access. These venues have opened up the world to us as creators. It's up to us to give content to fill those holes. So it's a wonderful time to be a woman in filmmaking, period.
Absolutely.
And it's up to us to grab it and not let go.
I agree. I think in terms of the generation that's coming up of women and the horror movies that they will make, there'll be a lot more access across the board. And I will be fascinated to see what kind of horror they're going to be making and what the next trend after this intimate trend will be. Mm-hmm. Also, if we can just make it by the coronavirus without everyone dying, I guess then we'll really see what's going to happen.
I'm just waiting for the coronavirus movie.
Why is that? Someone's making it right now, don't you think?
Yeah.
Someone's
like
writing
like
it at the very least.
A Sharknado scenario.
Yeah, somebody's doing it. It's going to be on Sci-Fi at like some weird kitschy time.
I feel like, do you guys remember that pandemic movie that had Kate
Outbreak.
Winslet, Matt Damon in it? It was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. Same thing, like virus jumps from an animal to in China. It's suddenly like across the scenario. Terrifying.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Dustin Hoffman Outbreak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
and the
God.
monkey. Find the monkey or we don't have a cure.
So real.
Well, thank you guys so much. This has been an amazing afternoon, an amazing conversation, and I appreciate both of you and what you guys are doing for this, my favorite genre. Represent.
Represent.
For everyone out there listening, we hope you've enjoyed this. Stay bloody. Wear those ovaries proud today because it is the last day of Women in Horror Month. We hope you're celebrating. Thank you very much, everybody.
Uterus unite. Yeah. Woo!